Kevin Spacey is back in the news, and that is never a good thing, as we've learned post House of Cards. So it says Kevin Spacey charged with sexual assault against 3 men in the UK. We just had a topic the other day covering Kevin Spacey where we talked about how he had something coming out to Cannes, and now we're going to cover that as well here. But it says Kevin Spacey has all new legal trouble, and this time it's overseas. He's been charged with 4 counts of sexual assault in the United Kingdom. It says Rosemary Ainsley, head of the Crown Prosecution Service, tells TMZ that CPS hit Spacey with the criminal charges for alleged incidents involving 3 different men between 2005 and 2013. So they keep coming, and the hard part is, like, how do you prosecute
They're over
this?
20 at this point?
Yeah, like, how do you prosecute any of this now? It says, we're told he's been charged with causing a person to engage in penetrative sexual activity without consent, and the charges come after a review of evidence gathered by a police investigation. Ainsley says that the Crown Prosecution Service reminds all concerned that criminal proceedings against Mr. Spacey are active and that he has a right to a fair trial, innocent until proven guilty, everything like that. It says, of course, this is not Spacey's first time facing such allegations. He was sued in 2020 by Anthony Rapp. He's from Star Trek Discovery. It says, who claims that that Kevin Spacey sexually assaulted him at the age of 14 when they were both on Broadway. And remember, like, 3 separate people who have accused him of stuff have died in, like, the last 3 years under, like,
suspicious
circumstances, which means he, like, seems more and more like his character from House of Cards. With
that weird video he posted shortly after one of them died. I forget which one it was.
He was, like, in front of like a fire.
The fire, yeah.
Didn't know how to stoke flames on the actual fire.
Haphazardly poking it. Yeah, it was really something to behold.
The reason why I wanted to bring this up is because he has a movie coming out at Cannes this year. And it says that this is Kevin Spacey, James Franco, and more are trying to make comebacks at Cannes this year. So, I mean, obviously, Kevin Spacey, we know all of those allegations. Do you know about James Franco and the allegations, but like him and his...
I didn't know about them before.
So he is accused of sexual assault with... thank you.
Money.
Yes. So it says, basically, he was accused of, like, sexual assault with people that worked in his, like, acting class.
He was teaching a master class in his own, like, studio that no longer exists on sex scenes.
Yeah.
That suspiciously seemed to be only female pupils.
No men involved.
Yeah.
Oh, that's strange.
Kind of weird.
So it says, from a cramped hotel room in luxury Cannes hotel, a pair of filmmaking executives are trying to pull off an unlikely feat, which is sell the distribution rights to Kevin Spacey's comeback film. On May 17th, Vantage Media International, or VMI, a Hollywood-based company that sells movies primarily to foreign markets. So I think the idea is that the overseas, if you're disconnected to what's going on here in America and you don't follow our criminal proceedings or what's going on in our culture, but maybe you just like grew up liking The Usual Suspects and liked him in House of Cards, maybe they wouldn't know what's going on.
Wasn't this something in like Mongolia, or am I crazy? Like, where was he filming?
No, it wasn't Mongolia. It was like it was a very far away. It was like it wasn't even
some
Turkey.
Eastern European nation.
So it says the movie's called Peter 5'8". It says they screened a finished print of the noir film Peter 5'8" to would-be buyers willing to take a gamble on the 2-time Oscar winner's first leading role since his career came to a grinding halt in 2017 amid accusations of sexual misconduct. I want to know if he got his Oscars taken away.
Has that ever happened before?
Is that even possible?
I don't know if they can.
How does that work?
Because there was like talk about them maybe doing that to Will Smith. I don't know if it's possible to have your Oscars.
Mail back your little.
Well, there was the thing where a bunch of them like sent back their Emmys to like the Hollywood Foreign Press over like something to do with protesting a couple years ago. Like Tom Cruise sent back his Oscars or something like that.
Yeah, this is as of now. No Oscar winners ever had their award rescinded. That's from Vogue magazine. 3 people have refused Oscars.
Does it say who?
Dudley? I have not looked that far into it, no.
So it says, in a room filled with marketing materials for VMI, the Randy Rhoads, Reflections of a Guitar Icon, and the Sam Worthington Machine Gun Kelly Western, The Last Son. Why would anyone watch a Machine Gun Kelly Western? Sam Worthington is barely.
I've been
I can
hearing
barely.
about Midnight in the Switchgrass for years. When is this movie gonna come out?
It's maybe
Him
it's
and
just,
Megan Fox.
it's one of those movies that's just never going to come out.
Yeah, what the hell?
There's actually there's an inside joke in skating. Like there's a company called Fiction that was making a video that was literally called the Fiction video that just they kept making advertisements for, but it just never came out.
I got the people that rejected their Oscars. George C. Scott for Patton. 1970 in the 70s. It was Marlon Brando actually rejected one. Do you remember he had that
Why?
Native American woman get up on stage and reject the Oscar for him? It was like, it says here they accepted, it was for On the Waterfront, 1955, but he was eager. There was, I don't know, 1973 ceremony amongst the Wounded Knee occupation in South Dakota.
So it was a form of, it was a social protest.
Yeah, like a protest.
For what was going
The
on.
other person who I'm not familiar with is Dudley Nichols.
I don't know who that is.
Yeah, same.
Because it's funny because like there was like a lot of movies at that time. I watched Dances with Wolves the other night.
Great
and
movie.
Just, great movie. And it's just there's so many of those movies that you just know they would never be able to make now because they know that the implications would be too like it would have to be so much more carefully done now than it was back then, meaning like every single thing that can go wrong in your promotional material likely will go wrong, so you have to be very
Do
careful.
you think in like 20 years from now they're gonna look back at like movies of the 2020s and be like, we could never make these movies
Probably.
now. They'll have even stricter guidelines.
Well, I would hope that we go through like a cultural roundabout and you kind of go through
You would
another
hope
phase.
that,
well,
but
you know, where things come
yeah.
back around and kind of subversive humor and edgy humor comes back for a time. I don't know if that's possible in the digital age now. I think it was more possible because of when you were saying something really, really controversial back in the day. People had to write you a letter to complain to you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like that now, and these
or
executives
find a phone number somehow.
Yeah, nowadays the
in
marketing
this thing called a phone book.
Nowadays, the marketing managers get really scared
Yeah.
off when they get 50 or 100 complaints, not realizing that your market share is a lot larger than 50 or
and
100
that
complaints.
it's a large proportion robot accounts.
Dead internet.
Dead
Dead
internet.
internet theory. So it says, the fact that there was an audience at all for this film, which boasts the tagline, "The guilty always pay the price." How can you star in a movie being Kevin Spacey with that tagline and not see the irony in that?
Yeah, it sounds intentional.
Well, it's like a lot of people, like if you watch the video of him like at the fire, he says a bunch of weird stuff about being accused of stuff. Like it's very creepy. Like there's very little shame in him in the way
That's
he's
why
approached this.
It doesn't exactly help your reputation.
No, it does not. So it says it could be considered a coup for VMI given Spacey's pariah status in Hollywood after at least 16 people came forward from 2017 alleging lewd and inappropriate behavior on the part of the actor towards young men on sets, going back decades and decades of that stuff. So, and then they also go for there's a James Franco movie coming out. It's a corrupt cop movie called Mace, starring James Franco, whose career took a nosedive after a 2018 Los Angeles Times expose in which 5 women claimed that he exploited them during his like acting classes that he was teaching. And also it says exploitative behavior. June and John in a low-budget romance shot by Luc Besson, the La Femme Nikita director who's been accused of rape by several. Sorry, I said it again.
Our word.
We're long into the segment now, so hopefully I'll edit it in post. So Luc Besson's got something there. James Franco, Alec Baldwin has something that's being sold at Cannes, and they're gonna
He
finish.
did something bad.
He did
Don't
something
remember
bad.
exactly.
I can't remember
what
what
it
that
was.
and he's going to be. Obviously, they're finishing Rust. They're not
Crazy
gonna
to
just
me.
let it die. They're gonna finish that movie.
They're
And
not going to
like,
make a documentary, nothing. It's just
They better make a documentary.
moving right
about
along,
it.
nothing to see here.
Yeah, so I find this about the 5 women who accused James Franco. It's basically like it's like crazy stuff where they're like he told them to like remove like when apparently like when you simulate oral sex on camera, they put like a guard over your private parts so that you don't
Yeah.
actually do it. I'm not making this up, and they're like he was like
The accusation was that he removed the guard during those scenes himself.
His own guard or theirs?
Theirs.
Yes.
And also that he would kind of imply in some vague way that there would be roles for them after the class if they did certain
Thank
things,
you.
like if they took off their tops or whatever while they were recording scenes.
That's some Harvey Weinstein stuff.
It does sound like it, but at the same time, like, I don't know. Like, you can kind of just say whatever you want now and
You can't prove that he didn't
no
say that.
proof.
Like, there's
you're
no way.
definitely gonna get a role looking like that kind of thing.
yeah.
And we have a heart, like, a lot of people are burnt out on the notion of, like, even if, like, Spacey's an interesting one because nobody's giving Spacey the benefit of the doubt. But for a lot of cases, a lot of people are like, look, I'm fed up with witch hunts. I'm gonna stand by innocent until proven guilty, and as a precedent for society, and we believe innocent until proven guilty. It's very easy to want to go after certain people because, like I said, my bias against Amber Heard comes from the things I've actually heard her say on audio tapes that has soured me on my opinion of her. And even then, it's more I have a very tepid displeasure with her behavior. But for most people, if I don't get to hear like actual proof of you doing something bad, and you're in an industry where being extremely, extremely go-getter and being extremely ambitious is encouraged, I have a hard time just taking their word for it.
It's also sexuality is extremely encouraged in that industry.
Yes.
I lived in LA from 2006 to 2011. I went back there in 2015 to 18, and I was an actor. I was in SAG, the Screen Actors Guild. I did like commercials. I did Aliens in America, a TV show for the CW network, and I had a manager, and it was overtly sexual. The things that manager would say is like, you're so sexy. You've just got that sex appeal, like alone in his apartment, and it's so it was so awkward to be exposed to that, but I guess it's the norm. That was, to me, it was a warning sign to get out.
Do you feel like it's an expectation for all actors to play into that?
There's a type of actor that plays into that. There's like the fat, smelly actor that they want to play the fat guy, but then there's the sex, and then it's like women for the most part sell sex. Even nerdy women, they want to sell the sex, and they want to sell the sex of the guys. For me, it was like, you're just gonna be so sexual that they're gonna love your sex energy.
And it's like, how do you and then you have to take the idea that we have to now quantify that and turn it into a business. Like say what you want about porn, but they're not hiding what they're doing. Whereas Hollywood is trying to mask what they're doing under a notion that they're actually somehow more morally,
or that it's elevating the art form.
Yes,
that's anything but.
That's the part I have the biggest problem with. It is like a lot of it is like self-importance, and they think very highly of what they do and the work they do, and that's why people in flyover states hate the idea of Hollywood elitism. It's like, I do not need you lecturing me on morality. You're the last person in the world I need lecturing me on morality. Yeah. Now, there could be there's a context for it. Now, remember, we have intimacy coordinators on movie sets. Like, imagine so this happened to him just a couple of years ago. Imagine actually thinking, like, do you think there's a guy in America now in Hollywood that actually has the guts to like run a sex scene class? Not if he's smart.
No, you'd have to have
what
waivers
year was
signed.
this happening that he did this?
So
Me Too?
This is pre-Me Too.
Okay, of course.
So it says accounts vary. Students' accounts differ. It says, I feel there was an abuse of power, and there was a culture of exploiting non-celebrity and a culture of women being replaceable. Everyone in that industry is replaceable.
That's for sure.
That there is no
I think that the implication in that, though, was they were saying the female actors are seen as replaceable for their sexuality, and they can't be judged on their own merits of like their performance, but that male actors at least have the option to be judged based on their actual performances. And it's not just objectification.
Yeah, and they say like men grow in, like men as they act, they grow into, like, you have a face that you grow into. Like, you're going to be great when you're playing older roles. Like, if you're too young and you have a baby face, they think that you'll do better when you have to play roles that are making you more convincing. Like, you can't play a CEO at 21, but you'll make a very convincing Fortune 500 CEO in your 30s and your 40s. Whereas women's marketplace in Hollywood tends to go down because of the inherent sexual nature of how they market these people.
In film, well, it's not film anymore. Now it's video, I guess, but they still call it the film industry. But in theater, there's a huge theater scene in LA as well. Yeah. It's not. It's more about quality acting, talent, and ability.
New York too, right? Like,
I would imagine. Right. Yeah, I didn't do a lot of theater in New York. I lived in New York for a while. But I didn't do. I think I did a little bit of stand-up comedy in New York City. But it's about how good they are on stage. If they can make you laugh, they're not wearing tight clothes. They're wearing whatever they want: long, flowy dresses, big over shirts. But it's their energy. You can hear and feel their sound. But when it comes to film, they just want tight outfits. Yeah. I'm not saying everybody all the time.
Because it's 2-dimensional. You don't have to be in the room with the person.
That's a good point. Yep. It's like watching a comic book strip.
Mm-hmm. So it says Hilary Dusum and Natalie Shamil, also students, claimed that Franco pressured actresses to film a scene topless, while Devin Labella said that the actor's film company, Rabbit Bandy Productions, would promise to hold parts in Franco's films projects for Studio 4 students. Parts that required nudity. So it's like he probably holds some parts for some of the male students too, but gets away with this by saying but I'll hold the parts for the women as long as they're willing to do nude scenes. Is it illegal?
Yeah.
Probably not. But is it scummy? Absolutely.
It sounds so sleazy and hyperbolic that he'd be like, yeah, if you take your top off, I'll give you a role. But that's literally what they're saying happened.
I'm picturing an actual casting couch in the corner of the room. It is almost cartoonish.
Yeah.
When you see these industries, some of the hardest things for me to watch in movies, I hate meta humor in Hollywood. Thanks. You. I'm just not a huge fan of meta humor in Hollywood. It just doesn't work for me. The one example is we watched, what was the one that we watched? The Bubble. That was one of the rare examples of a movie where I enjoyed actors acting like douches because it was part of their job to be hyperbolic.
But at the same time, it was aren't we such lovable douchebags?
Yeah, but in general, but this is beyond parody. And then you'll get the role as long as you take your top. It sounds like something you'd make up in a book, and it can't actually be right like that in real life, but it is.
Yeah.
When Seth Rogen, who was his best friend and working partner, acting partner for decades, or
kicked him to the curb.
Yeah, he was I've had enough. I think that kind of indicates that he knew that James had been doing this for a while and been inappropriate for a while.
But even then, he didn't do it until he got caught. So I don't know if I
I know.
That's if you're not gonna stop working with your friend until you find out that people are now mad that you're doing it. That's not any type of bravery. That's just covering your own ass. Mm-hmm. So and I did want to point out one thing that I thought was interesting is so we've got Kevin Spacey, we've got Alec Baldwin, and we've got James Franco, all with movies at Cannes, and then we've also got a lot of stuff involving protests. We had the protests over. You covered feminicide.
Yeah, there was first a lone protester that ran out on the red carpet at one of the premieres. She had body paint on her. It was about Russian war crimes. And then later at a different premiere, there was a flash mob of protesters talking about femicide in France, which is, I guess it's just a hate crime against women. You're getting murdered because you're a woman.
Yeah. So they have to actually acknowledge that that's the reason it happened. Mm-hmm. So we've got a bunch of horrible people trying to revitalize the careers, and then we have people trying to do legitimate, good by protesting in the name of causes that they believe in, and it's all happening at the same place. And I find that kind of a good kind of summation of Hollywood as a whole. You have a lot of awful people and maybe a few good ones that also want to say, put across good messages, and they're all interacting together. And in the world now where everything's so polarized, how does this come to pass in a way where it must be weird for people here to be I'm here to make my movie about the war in Ukraine, and Kevin Spacey standing next to him hello. That's
the pictures are crazy. The reactions of celebrities trying to seem like they're hearing out the protesters, oh yes, I'm very sophisticated and a cinephile, and I'm very artistic and I know about the world. But at the same time, you're scared because there's some woman screeching at you in French.
And they're they have to pretend they're both. I support you, but also not act surprised as to what they're seeing.
You should be apprehended by security. Don't do that shit around me, right?
Well, yes, it's always not in my backyard, right?
Yeah.
So it's they're fine with this stuff happening as long as it's not affecting them.
Yeah.
So it says the Ukrainian filmmakers behind a movie called Butterfly Vision protested the ongoing invasion of the Ukraine on the red carpet at the Cannes Film Festival. The film's director, I'm not even going to try and pronounce this name. I apologize. Not possible for me. His first name's Maxim, but I can't pronounce that last name. It says, appeared at the event with his colleagues wearing shirts with slogans about the invasion, including an image of an explosion with the phrase Ukraine life written above it. So they're there trying to bring attention to what they believe, to their cause, to the war in Ukraine. So these people are trying to do good, and then you have, or if it's their country, they believe in their country, they want to draw attention, they want to get as much positive energy, or positive press coming their way to help with, whether they need people to America to send more supplies, or they want to get the UN involved. The best way that they know how to do that as filmmakers is to make movies about it. That's how they do their activism. How do they how do these people how do you think they feel all interacting with also people making movies with these objectively awful people that people have condemned in society?
It's kind of cool. It's like a melting pot of psychopaths.
Yes.
All clamoring for the hot spot of the 10 minutes in the limelight, like the Oscars. Everyone wants to have their big moment at the Oscars or their big moment at Cannes. But this is reminiscent of the 1990s and early 2000s before the internet video appeared. Now you can start a show 5 days a week and have more notoriety and availability to people's minds than you have by a 5-minute, standing ovation at the Oscars that barely anybody watches anymore.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's a relic. A lot of these people they want what they think is cool, but I mean, I wouldn't have heard of this if we didn't talk about it on the show. Yeah. This show is obviously, to me, more relevant than Cannes. I didn't know Cannes was going on.
Yep.
And to a lot of people, probably.
I think of it more as when people think of festivals now, it's just a buyer's market to get these things sold off to these production companies. Do you want to do super chats? And people need to take notice of the screen. There's a bar now at the screen. It's counting up, and when it hits a certain amount, which is $100,
our most observant viewers
will see the growing bar. It's very similar to another channel that I follow called Chicken City. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but something might happen if we get to $100.
ChickenCityLive.com. Oh, that's exciting.
Yes, it is. Go ahead with super chats.
Yes. Waffles Sensei says Amber would be a fool to not take the role of herself in the true crime remake of this trial. It's the last movie anyone would ever hire her for.
It could be the resurgence of her career. You never know.
Yeah.
I don't know if she's she might with her, maybe I'm just cynical in the age we live in now, but I feel like she'll get she'll still get work. I don't know if it will kill her.
If Kevin Spacey can, anyone can.
That's what I'm saying. If she all she did was hit a guy. I mean, are you kidding? That's what they'll say. They're are you kidding me? He was probably asking for it. Hire her.
I'd never seen her work until recently, and I think it was in Aquaman. Was she in the first one too?
Yes.
And I thought she's actually a talented actor. That's one of the things, I guess, about Kevin Spacey too. He's a really great actor. It doesn't mean he's when you say good, that's a little vague. What does that mean? He's not saying she's good. She's obviously a nut job, but she's talented.
Thanks.
There's a lot of people who think that you have to kind of be to be an actor, you have to kind of be because of how emotionally vulnerable you have to be on screen, that you're more emotional. Do you know what I mean?
But that's a misnomer. I went to theater school, and a lot of people, they were like, I just feel, Ian. It's just, I need this. And I'm like, this is a job. It's a job. You put it down when you walk away from it. If you let yourself go crazy, like Heath Ledger, he did the Joker and then killed himself because he was thinking he really was the Joker.
No,
pills
that didn't end up happening. He had always had sleeping problems. So that was actually his family had come out and corrected on that. That's not actually what happened with that. He's just that was just used as a cynical way of promoting. It became its own self-fulfilling rumor. Right?
That might be true. It is his family that made that statement, so it's hard to say if they're not biased. But from my personal experience as an actor, when I was smoking a lot of pot, I started to believe that I was okay, I'm angry. Yeah. I am John Lennon. Yeah. I am hateful, because John Lennon got beat when he was a kid. He was angry, so I started to feel like I'm angry. I'm but it's weird how the mind is malleable like that. It's almost like a dangerous industry to mess around in.
And for me, one of it was just you have to constantly put yourself out there, right? Your work is constantly going to be critiqued. Everything you do is going to be judged. That's what I mean by vulnerable. I'm not saying they don't know how to turn it off at the end. I'm saying you're actively putting out a very, very vulnerable side of yourself to portray something and be open for critique all the time. It is more what I'm saying. We've actually covered that where Mads Mikkelsen had a whole article where he's method acting is BS. It's just you do the job. If you're good at the job, you can do the job, and that's
I would do. Oh geez, what are these different types? You have method acting. You've got what was Linklater. What Linklater did anyway. I don't want to go too deep into it now. I can't remember from theater school. Different ways of acting, outside in, inside out. Do you really believe you are the character? That's kind of okay. If I'm playing a psychopath or if I'm playing a murderer, I would believe I am a murderer in this position, but I wasn't doing drugs at the time.
Yeah.
Drugs, man, They really confuse the mind.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does that make it harder to do drugs mask? Does it make it harder to act with on drugs, or does it make
It can make it more intense and even maybe more believable, but it seems to make the self more vulnerable to becoming twisted after you get it done.
I was gonna say, because like me with my history with substance abuse, it masked my emotions and dulled them. So I think I would have had a harder time connecting with the material if I was trying to, act and portray.
Oh yeah, fasting and like when you cry because you're just so pure, you feel it so clearly. That's the best way to be when you want to perform, I think, in my personal opinion.
Okay. All right. Next super chat.
Yes. Kyle Army 11 says, I want to see Robert Downey Jr. play Johnny Depp. And Johnny Depp cross-dress as Amber Heard in a remake.
Oh my God.
I like that.
That's incredible.
That'd be fun.
And then that thing can segue into like Tropic Thunder 2. and Amber Heard can play Robert Downey Jr.'s role in Tropic Thunder 2.
Johnny Depp can climb out of a hole in the ground like in North Vietnam.
Yes.
Next one is Joe Duraki, a.k.a. Jay Dizzle. Ian, love seeing you on this show. I hope you can make appearances regularly. And for the love of God, shout out your appearance tonight on IRL.
You know I will.
Yes. That's Tim, the other day, Tim he's like, they're on Sunday through Thursday. I'm like, Monday through Friday, but close enough.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Have you considered doing Sundays as well?
Well, before what we were doing is when we were originally started, we weren't live. We would record Sunday through Thursday because the episode came out the next day.
Okay.
So he wasn't wrong. It's just we had already gone live by that point.
Interesting.
So. Next.
Caper2X says the solution for Hollywood villainy is graphene, hopefully in the megaton range, launched from orbit.
Is this true, Ian?
I think so, yeah. It's the phene. It's the structure of the phene. So you got your graphene and your borophene. I think there's actually graphine. Have you seen that?
No.
Multi-dimensional graphene, I think. I haven't looked too deeply into it. Yeah, it's with a Y instead of an E.
Is there going to be a graphene movie? Well, there'll have to be a movie on graphene.
Yeah, graphene
someday.
the movie is what it'll be called.
Fantastic.
It could be better framed.
Next.
Rolando A. Ramirez sent $10 with no message. Thank you.
Thank you.
1,000-foot deep end says super chatting just to see what happens when that pink progress bar at the bottom of the screen filled up.
Oh, it's
I'm
getting close.
intrigued.
It's getting there.
Thank you. Timely Gaming sent $10 with no message. Thank you again. Waffles Sensei says, I just want to see the bar hit 100, hoping it's a chicken party in the studio gets Legend of Zelda, I don't know how to say that, attacked.
Yeah, in Zelda, at least I think it was in the third one, if you beat chickens for a living, like if you walked around and hit the chickens, eventually the chickens would come flying off the screen at you and attack you.
You're not making this up,
No,
really?
that's the real deal, yeah.
Also, I love that there's a little dollar sitting on top of my
I know.
camera.
It's on top of her camera
Isn't
right
that
now.
perfect?
You will not be able to see it.
Waffle Sensei says, oh wait, no, I just read that one. Caper2X sent $10 with no message. Thank you. Jennifer Presley said chicken party with a bunch of chicken emojis. Thank you. Logan Culver said, if you're watching on a Fire Stick, the chat scrolls on the right covering your faces. Just something to keep in mind. Love all the Timcast crew.
We will
look into that. Thank you.
We will have to
Right
look into
on.
that. Thanks for watching this clip, guys. If you want to see full episodes or follow us on social media, links are in the description below. Bye.
Bye.